So I'm sure by now you've all heard the sad news. The legendary actor Tatsuya Nakadai has passed away at the age of 92. He apparently died from pneumonia in a Tokyo hospital on Saturday. And when I just heard the news from the people in my community, I felt like a part of that golden age in cinema had officially died. He really was the last remaining big name actor from that era. It's really a time that's my all-time favorite in all of cinema. And when you just look at the actors back then, those men were built differently. No one looks like that anymore. Talking about Nakadai, Toshiro Mifune, Sonny Chiba, they look like they were made out of steel. And maybe they were. People like him and even my grandfather, they all lived to see these hardships that we couldn't even imagine. And they really shaped society for today. But going back to Nakadai, it really was just sad news to see him go. And I did know it was soon just because of how old he was. In fact, I made a video on his 90th birthday. But he really did act until the very end. If you go on IMDb, the 2020 film The Past Last Days of the Samurai is his last official movie. And I remember reviewing that one recently, and it was a good film. But his last official leading role was actually one of my favorite movies with him. And this was 2019's The Return. And I couldn't imagine a more fitting final movie for him. It was like a last gift that he gave us, and we really should treasure that one. But just throughout a career spanning 7 decades, he has 184 screen credits. It's pretty incredible. I'll say he's probably known best just internationally for the Akira Kurosawa epic Ran. Incredible film, just one of the most beautiful films ever made. And this is where Nakadai played the warlord Hidetora. He actually plays a really old man, but he was actually young when he played him. And he just did a great job with that. And it was this film that would earn Kurosawa his only Oscar nomination for Best Director. I'll never forget the first time I saw him in a movie. It was actually one of the first samurai movies I've ever seen. And it was also Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo. And I gotta say, he was such a badass as the villain with the gun in that film. Even when he was young though, you knew there was something special about him. And he sort of did replace, the legend Toshiro Mifune as Kurosawa's favorite actor. And the two of them, I will say, are my favorite actors. I don't really like choosing one over the other. Mifune was almost superhuman. And he would just steal any scene he was in. He could really just act without even saying anything. But I always feel like Nakadai had better range. He could transform into anything. A sympathetic man like we saw in The Human Condition, or just a pure psychopath like in The Sword of Doom, which I actually think that might be my favorite role of his. But there's just so many contenders, he's always great in every role. But whenever Nakadai appeared on screen with Mifune, that's when his talents would really shine. And, if you look at Kurosawa's acclaimed 1963 police drama High and Low, this is where he plays the inspector who's investigating the kidnapping of a son of Mifune who plays a wealthy businessman. Incredible film, and I believe it has one of the best opening scenes ever. Immediately you're just sucked in. And I did mention the 1961 samurai film Yojimbo, but a year later, Kurosawa would reunite these two figures in Sanjuro, the sequel to Yojimbo. And the film famously ends with the sword fight between the two of them. This is where Sanjuro slices through Hanbei's torso, just with lightning speed, and it unleashes a geyser of blood. A display of graphic violence that actually really shocked audiences at the time. Now you just look at it and say, wow, that's awesome. I always thought this was an accident, but Kurosawa later denied the claims that this was caused by any kind of malfunctioning prop. So whether or not it happened by accident or design, the scene had forever an influence on action films and especially video games. He also starred in Kurosawa's 1980 epic, Kagemusha, the story of a thief who is hired to impersonate a dying samurai warlord. And this actually won an award at the Cannes Film Festival of the same year. But I was actually surprised to find out that Nakadai actually admitted to preferring stage acting as to movies. This included Death of a Salesman, Don Quixote, Hamlet and Macbeth, and this really helped to nurture young actors, in which he opened an acting school in Tokyo in 1975. He actually refused to contractually bind himself to any particular film studio. This is so that he could work with a variety of directors. And Nakadai would become very closely associated with my favorite genre, chambara, sword fighting films. Roles in films with just strong samurai themes. He also appeared in the 1962 Jidaigeki period drama Harakiri, regarded to many as Masaki Kobayashi's masterpiece. And this was just a highlight of a very long and just successful artistic collaboration with great directors like Kobayashi, who also brought him other prominent roles like Samurai Rebellion and Quiet On, both excellent films. And Nakadai did owe much of his success to director Kobayashi. He casted him as the lead in the Human Condition trilogy. And this is just a really powerful film trilogy that I really recommend. He plays this pacifist who's sort of struggling to come to terms with Japan's militarist rule during the Second World War. And it's also incredible too that this is actually his first leading role. So I definitely recommend watching this if you just want to remember how great he was. And one of his first major film roles was as an uncredited part as a prisoner in Kobayashi's 1953 war drama, The Dick Walled Room. This was the start of a partnership that would last 3 decades. And it was interesting because reportedly this was just a result of a chance meeting with director Kobayashi. This was when Nakadai was working as a shop assistant in Tokyo, and it just led to this incredible career. Nakadai was born into a working class family in Chiba, east of Tokyo. In 1932, Nakadai decided to take up acting over the overpriced and very expensive university education, then enrolling in acting school in the early 1950s. In 2015, Nakadai was awarded the Order of Culture, Japan's highest honor for contributions to the arts and science. This is given by the emperor himself. So just an incredible man who's just had a massive imprint as the genre as a whole. And I grew up watching movies with him which at the time were considered old films, because they kind of were. But just the fact that he was still alive always made me feel like there was still something to those films that still just made them relevant. But even though everyone from that time may no longer be around, the influence they created is still felt today. The movies are still talked about, and we're still getting re-releases and restorations of those films. So the great men may be gone, but their work will live on forever. And Nakadai got to do something that he loved until the end. I picture him in his last moments, with a sword in his hands and a smile on his face, because he died doing something that he loved.